So I remember at one point I was like, okay, everyone over is focused on Etsy. Why don't I take this other thing? Why don't I become the person who runs this?
MacCoy became the future.
Well, here's the thing. I like put people in a wasteland. So I kind of like just drove them out and threw them in a field and said, yeah, grow something. Okay. MacCoy Merkley.
Howdy.
What do you think about being on a podcast with the two of us?
You know, I've been on a few of these, but to talk to your boss on a podcast is going to be an interesting experience. You know quite a bit about me, and you know about what my normal subject matter is, which is the company. So we'll see where this goes.
Okay. Do you have hidden all kinds of other things outside of the company? Because I know you think about this all the time. Is this, hey, you're a dad, you got the kids, you got the wife, you got the house, I know your parents. Is there this big depth that we don't see that I never hear about?
That would be a safe assumption for most people, because for most people, their careers or their job is a job, and their career maybe is like this thing that's on a shelf. It's maybe less of who they are. But the two things for me have really blended together over the past few years and almost become like one and the same. And I think that's especially true the more your career involves like the central business mechanisms, because there's so much parity between like everyday life and running a business that it's hard to separate them at some point. So short answer is no, I'm kind of simple. What you see is what you get. You jokingly one time said there's only two things to me, and that's kind of it. And I was insulted. I was like, how could I be so shallow that there's only two things to me? I didn't even make a 3-point bullet list. That's how interesting I am as a person. But those two things are basically like my career and my family. And that's what I got going on right now. And that's a season of life. I'm young. And so I can't think of two better things to focus on than my career and my family right now.
I don't think there's anyone I've talked to more than twice that if I did a podcast with them, they wouldn't come back and say, yeah, you really insulted me once by saying that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want me to dig into my journal during this.
Even the first interview, I always said something memorable and a little bit offensive, and they never forget it. And after a while, that looks like a badge of honor a little
Yeah,
bit,
it becomes less offensive. MacCoy said it the other day. We were sitting at a restaurant in LA, and he said, after 5 years, what you say seems way less offensive than what you said then.
That's true.
Oh, you give it some time and it's less offensive than when I actually
It's not time. It's a growth of your company, maybe? What do you mean there, MacCoy?
Oh, yeah. So I said, Curtis, again, we go way back, obviously. Yeah. Almost coming on 8 years eventually in the next few months. But we went from literally sharing a desk to where we are now. We're obviously in separate countries, but we worked together a long time. And I tell people, Curtis has not changed whatsoever. But when I was making $13 an hour and the company was very small, it was a lot less charming than the multi-$100 million CEO you meet now. It's tolerable now, but back in the day, I wanted to.
I was just going to say, I have gotten much more charming since I've become more successful, yet I'm the exact same person.
You didn't change. So, props for keeping it real all the way back then when,
there's no doubt. Okay, have you changed? Oh, wow.
Oh,
see, I'm older. So I got more of this.
You're not in your 40s.
I is who I is.
Are you still in your 40s right now?
I met you and you were like this little boy.
I was 24 years old when I joined the team. And
but you weren't a regular 24-year-old. Number one, you looked 18.
Yeah.
Number two, you were already married.
Yep.
So you already ran your own company.
Yep.
And I have no reason in the world why you walked in our front door. Why did you bless us by coming in our door and asking for a job?
I was a wedding photographer. My wife was at the time a wedding hair and makeup artist. So we kind of teamed up to create this dynamic duo, and that was going really well. But I have always been entrepreneurial. I always wanted to start my own company and just be involved in the growth of a company. And so when I was working as a photographer, the nature of wedding photography is you work on the weekends and then you edit all week. Editing is much simpler today than it was back in the day. It used to take me 2 full weeks to edit a wedding. Whether I was lazy or bad at it, who knows? But nonetheless, during the weekdays, I was waking up at like 1 or 2 in the afternoon, staying up way too late, drinking too much beer, playing video games, just being like an average, 22, 24-year-old kid. And so I was like, okay, I got to get my crap together. I got to better myself or I'll never be able to buy a house. So why don't I give myself a reason to get out of bed in the morning? Let's go look for a job to get myself out of bed. And at first,
You were his
Oh
reason
my
to get
God!
out of bed.
don't make it more romantic. It was not about you. It was about me. Okay. In any case, I just went looking for a job. I went looking for a job and a good reason to get out of bed. And I remember finding the Craigslist post at 9 p.m. and it was for digital media specialist. And I found this email the other day, by the way. I'll go back and send it to you. And I responded and I was like, hey, I think I'm a perfect fit for this job. I'm a digital media. I know that, but I don't have a resume. So I'd love to just come in and talk to you. I submitted that at 9 p.m. on, was it April 19th? And I walked
Shut
in.
up. You know that.
Yes.
He just was looking at the email. He just said that. Pay
Yeah. It was
attention.
April 19th. And then I walked in on April 20th at 9 a.m. when the doors unlocked.
So you didn't give it. So we're not sure if we got that email or not because you walked in ahead.
No, you didn't mention it. I said I sent an email and you hadn't had a minute to read it. Again, I sent it post business hours and I walked in the door at 9 a.m. I was like, hey, I sent an email last night. I'd love to talk to somebody. And I
Okay,
don't think you've read it yet.
so you came to the Portland Leather Goods building.
Yep.
You saw the sign, or was it even a sign, or it's just a building?
I think we had that wooden sign, like there's like a plywood sign we had bolted to the outside of the building.
Wow. Okay. So you walked up this. Did you see anyone downstairs, or just
No,
walked
walked in. It was just this empty, weird hallway, and there was a roof over our head, right? So it was before the demo of the basement. So this dark, weird hallway
it
with
was
a little
sketchy.
chalk
Yeah.
sign on the stairwell.
Wow.
So you walk up the stairs, and then it's probably bigger than you thought when you walked
Yeah.
up, right? Because
Oh,
we had
yeah.
already demoed some walls.
Yeah, you walked up, and at the time we, constantly rearranged the upstairs. But when I walked upstairs, you walked up, and there was people like hammering rivets feet away from the top of the stairs. So it was literally like you didn't feel like you belonged at all when you hit the top of the staircase. Like you walked into a manufacturing floor, and I was like, uh-oh, like obviously very confused. And then somebody came over and helped me and directed me to where I needed to go. Anna.
Really?
Yeah,
And then
I
I
walked up.
was now. I love this because this happens in my life all the time. I'm different. I used to tell stories like with gusto, and like that's how it is. And now I will put a little bit on it and say my memory remembers it this way. It could be true or not. I like give a little disclaimer. My memory is I was actually interviewing someone, and I think I saw you come up, and then you came over to me or were brought over to me. I don't
That is
remember her
correct.
bringing anybody over, right? But
Yeah,
I
that
was
is
in
correct.
the middle of an interview.
You were somebody walked up the stairwell right behind me about 30 seconds later who did actually have an interview. So when I came up, Anna said, do you have an interview? Or I said, I'd like to meet somebody. I submitted an email last night. I'd love to just say hi and introduce myself. She said, oh, do you have an interview? I said, no, I don't have an interview. She said, okay, let me go talk to Curtis. And she walked to find you. You passed the opposite direction, and somebody had come up behind me who actually had an interview. And you're like, okay, let's go. And you grabbed her, and you said, are you here for an interview? And I was like, I don't have one. And you said, do you want one? And I said, yes. And so we interviewed right there on the spot.
Together with her.
Yes, group interview. Impromptu group
Was
interview.
she offended? Yeah. Was she offended?
She didn't do well. You didn't hire her, so I don't know. But I think it
Can
threw
you
her off,
remember
too.
anything about it?
About her or about the interview?
Yeah, about her.
Not much. But
Okay.
I do remember. I remember a lot about the interview, but not about her specifically.
Okay. Now,
Make yourself memorable.
I don't want to tell this. I don't want to ask this question because I have a great story about how I started calling you Maverick.
Oh,
And I love my
you
story.
go
I don't
for
want
it.
to change it.
No, go for it.
I think that you didn't have me a resume, right?
No, I didn't have one.
Did you came up and you said, my name is MacCoy Merkley?
I'm not sure if I just like outright said my name.
No,
or
I
whatnot,
bet
but
you
I-
asked.
but-
Who
Because
are you?
I had to hear the two names. I heard MacCoy Merkley, and in my memory, I said, that's a terrible name. It would be better if you were Maverick Merkley MacCoy. MacCoy, your last name.
I don't remember that specific. I remember when you introduced me to the whole team as Maverick, so it seemed like already baked into the cake by then. But that's probably, maybe you were already, I don't know. I don't recall.
It was
that
just
specific
something
moment.
that Merkley shouldn't be the last name. It should be MacCoy. You need
I
a
know.
stronger first name.
Yeah,
I
I
want
got
to
2
know
last
about
names.
that interview. What did you say you brought to the table?
Yeah,
I mean, you
why
became,
did
you were memorable.
Yeah,
You stayed.
Yeah.
What did you bring to the table back then?
I can't do this with
Yeah.
everybody, so I got to be a little selfish here, okay? Like, did this interview change the trajectory of your life completely?
Oh, without a
You
doubt. Yeah.
think?
Everything changed because of this, right?
Yeah.
So now let's go back to it. What did you say to get hired? Why
Yeah.
did I like you and not the girl?
I'll caveat it. I'll say that it changed the trajectory, meaning like the arc of the trend, but I was already sort of on a trend, right? Like I was
I
already
knew you were going to say that. Yeah,
right. I
you
was
said,
already
I'm gonna do this
entrepreneurial.
anyhow,
I remember
right?
in my interview, although it was not relevant whatsoever to the position I was interviewing for, telling you like my aspirations, to grow a company and to start one for myself one day, or to be involved in this side of the growth of company. So I was already on, and I already owned 2 companies at that time, photography studio in Portland and also my own personal business. But I remember during that interview, again, it was kind of sort of a vague position we were interviewing for. One thing you used to ask people, I'm not sure if it was a brilliant decision or just something you did at the time, but you used to just spin your laptop around and you'd say, show me something. And that was, I think, probably purposefully
still does
designed
that.
to, okay,
Yeah, I
good.
do it.
Maybe throw people off a little bit. Like, what do you want me to show you? Like a rom-com or some work that I've done? But being a wedding photographer and owning my photography studio, I already had 2 like fully designed websites, and I'd already thought a lot. I was already running paid traffic to those, not really even understanding what I was doing, but I had some sense of like web design, and obviously like digital media was natural to me via what I was doing. And you said, show me something. And I remember the moment I said something and it sparked something in you, which was I got to the bottom of a very long gallery page on my photography website. And I added a little button that said back to top or back to galleries. And I said, you always want to give them some way at the bottom of this page to take another path so that they don't just leave, because I'm asking too much of them to basically scroll up to the top of the page.
Obviamente su
What did I
pinche
say?
computadora está descargada.
I'm hearing
¿Cómo le hago?
Mariana's mic wherever she is.
Oh my
Yeah,
God,
that's
that's hysterical.
like
Because
that.
what I should call this podcast the low battery podcast, where you start because it just says low battery and we need to plug it in, but everything's plugged in, which means you better get
No,
the
it's
important
been-
stuff done because we don't know how much battery we have.
No.
And at some point, the podcast just cuts off.
That's, I think that idea of web design and like user experience is kind of what naturally slated me into the Shopify role.
Area,
Like that was kind of the thing that I came in and took over, was the website itself. So we went from
Now,
like
did we have
digital
Shopify
media
at
to the
time?
Shopify.
We were using Shopify, right?
We had a shell. I think there was maybe only 6 or 7 products on there. And we were coming off of 2017, 2016, where famously at 2016 Black Friday, you did one sale, right? So the website existed, but it was in comically rudimentary form.
It not just rudimentary, it was ignored.
Yeah.
It just like no one, I probably put it's what I think a lot of people do. They put some pictures, say, does this look pretty? And then they are like, why is it not selling? I need traffic to this thing. I don't think we'd ever changed anything.
Right. Yeah, it was very, I mean, primitive is probably a better word for it. It existed, but
The one
it was
that I
not
designed was
customizable.
primitive.
Apparently.
Okay, so you knew it was Shopify from the word go, or what did you think about it?
I had no idea what Shopify was. I enjoyed tinkering with the website. I enjoyed like finding custom page builders.
So this is April 20th. You start right away
Yep.
of 2017.
2018.
2018. Okay. Okay.
Yep. So that it was early. And I just kind of fell in love. Again, I was already designing digital experiences for my own businesses. But the store was new. So I was very familiar with Squarespace. Squarespace was all the rage and like the creative Portland, hipster.
Especially for a photographer, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It was really
but Squarespace was kind of starting to roll out some storefronting at the time, but Shopify was like, at the time it was much smaller. It was like the Squarespace equivalent for selling things. So I was excited to learn this new platform and kind of like take ownership over it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so you don't know anything about this. So I think that this company is not as old as we think it is. I would say it's basically when we decided we were going to be a Shopify. Like, I mean, are you really a company if you're selling at art festivals? Does that even count?
I think so.
2015 count? It does.
I think it does. So one thing I talk, just to piggyback off to your segue, which is I tell the origin story of Portland Leather Goods with slightly differently now, which is especially when you're in our sphere, like if you imagine starting over again, like there's a lot of things you would and wouldn't do the same way, more things that you wouldn't do the same way. I'll say that.
Yeah.
But when people go to start a brand today, they think about, I got to develop a product and then I got to find a manufacturer and I got to order a bunch from China. But you did it the opposite way. And with that formula or that format carried on even into the Shopify days, which was you went and bought leather, you made things, and then the number of available quantity you keyed into Etsy or Shopify that day was how many you had on hand. That's like a fundamentally different way of starting a business than the way people think about it today, which is like, I have to have a product, then I need a loan, then I need to buy a bunch of product. Oh, I hope it works. You were making things and then selling them, making things with your hands and then selling them.
Yeah, I don't think I'd do that again. Now, hold on. What we're going to do is we're going to take our first commercial break. Donald, what were your thoughts the first week or two? Like, you had to get a job to get out of bed. I get it.
Yeah.
And you're getting up and you're telling your wife, I'm going to work. What did she say when you said, I got this job?
Do you really want to know?
Yes.
Yes, of course.
It was insane. It was a whirlwind. Because again, like I'm sharing a desk with you, right? So we're coming in every day, and you weren't big on roles and titles and job descriptions and structure, let's say, at the time. He's better now. At least he allows it. But when he was the one in charge of making it, it was a little crazy. So every day was literally show up and find something to do, which looking back I'm grateful for that. That experience of like, hunting all over the company. And so, but it took me a while to figure out like what my job actually was. And I basically had to like take things for myself. So like the Shopify, it was never an established conversation. Hey, you're going to be the steward of Shopify. You're going to like make this thing tick or keep it, clean. I had to basically come in and through insecurity and fear, like, I don't know what I'm doing here. And I don't know if I'm doing a good or bad job. And I don't know if anyone's mad at me. I had to like find things to adopt as my own responsibility. So I remember at one point I was like, okay, everyone over is focused on Etsy. Why don't I take this other thing? Why don't I become the person who runs the store?
MacCoy became the future.
Well, here's the thing. I like put people in a wasteland. So I kind of like just drove him out, threw him in a field and said, yeah, grow something. And he's like what? Where's the seeds? What? Like he had to figure this shit out. Everybody else withered, right? There were a lot of people that came in and gone because I didn't tell them what to do because I didn't know what they were supposed to do. They had to figure out what to do, right?
Yeah.
I was making this shit up too.
Yeah, we clearly all were, but there was like this golden child that was Etsy, and it was untouchable. It was, and it was for the most part like solved was probably a good word. Like you that was well maintained. It had a structure, it had roles, albeit a small amount of them. You were doing all of the advertising yourself on Etsy. Then we had Erica, the creative director at the time, managing all like the creative work and listings, but no one was doing the equivalent thing on Shopify. So I took that. And then the second major responsibility I took was in the progress of just making the website better, thinking about advertising. And I already knew how to advertise to engaged women in the Portland area, like wedding photography services.
Yeah.
Because that's a demographic target on Meta or Facebook back in the day. And so that's like about as fish in a barrel as you get with like advertising targeting. Somebody is within 10 miles of me and they're engaged and I sell wedding photography services. That is easy mode. But we had makeup bags and dop kits that we were selling to bridesmaids and groomsmen.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And so that was the first time where I was like, hey, do you guys run ads to this website? Or if not, I know how to target engaged men and women. Why don't we try to sell them this makeup bag and dop kit at $20 a day, I think was my starting.
Okay. So you guided me through this. So you're saying, I like to say, hey, I'm this marketing expert. I started this in 2025. I built it up over 10 years. But you're saying 3.5 years in, I didn't know what the hell. Wasn't even running ads to Shopify. Never even entered my mind.
No, there was nothing, no ads going to Shopify. We did, somewhere around my first few months, we did hire somebody who attempted to run like a Google AdWord to Shopify. And she eventually left, but didn't turn off the ads. And I didn't know how to log into Google. I remember discovering one day that we had spent like $600 over 2 months. And it was like, the world was ending. You were so mad about the $600. Like we had no idea if it worked or didn't work, but it was like $600 later. It was the biggest tragedy for, I don't know, 15 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
Can't imagine that now.
Getting upset over 600.
No.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
No, but no, we were running nothing. So that's where we started.
Okay, so you're running shop. So this is not going to happen on every podcast when we talk about extraordinary company, but here's the thing. Here's the difference between me and you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Very, very similar and very, very different people.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, that's a question.
That is a question.
Are we similar?
You and I? No, him and you. In a way,
That's a weak answer. Are we? In what ways?
you're both very focused on the job. You're both
Ooh, this is good.
company centered. You're both working towards making this bigger. MacCoy likes to think he's a little more structured.
Is he more structured?
I like to think that, or I am. I'm not sure. What you
Wow.
meant? That was a question. I don't know.
Wow.
Completely sure.
I'm not sure. Okay. We're very similar and we're very different. We're both people who like to get things done. We both have supreme confidence.
Yep.
We both believe in action. We can both see big conceptual ideas and put them together.
You both think you're right.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. So at this point, I'm like, I don't know what's going on. It's still Etsy to me, man. We're making millions of dollars. I'm paying the bills. I built this up. This is working. Why change what works? Now, this is where me and you, if we're talking to a company, we would just be saying, you are missing the boat, and they're not going to listen.
Absolutely.
So you are the first person to say, hey, dummy, spend more time where you're going than where you are.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember saying those words?
Not in those exact words, obviously. But I remember the conversation around like Etsy versus the .com. And no one besides, I don't know if I won't maybe put you in that bucket, but I think you were. There wasn't a person in the building who believed the .com was going to be bigger than the Etsy at the time. Like, I remember literally getting laughed at when I presented the idea to certain people.
Oh no, we were laughing about something else. Don't worry.
I'm sure.
That
I'm
one,
sure.
yeah.
No, that is funny. Actually, I would love to know. If I can reverse interview? What you thought, especially. I mean, now we're 7.5 years in there, but what it was like, what you thought of me the first few years.
I thought that you were someone who that you wanted to move forward. So you've already done that in this interview. You've already talked about, hey, whether I made it with Portland Leather Goods, I was going to make it because that's just who I am. And I just happened to, the first Craigslist ad, I go in, I get a job the next day, and we grow it into $500 million. I mean, I would have done that anyhow, right? There's truth and false, but that's who you are. First of all, the fact that you 100% believe that. Mm-hmm. And that's same thing here. Okay, so we've got the similarities. So I knew you had that extra drive. I knew you would just pick up a hammer and do whatever needed to be done, which is what you need when you're in a startup, right? Like, you just get it done. So there was there. You were not as good at communicating your thoughts to people as you are now.
For sure.
Like, it was like I would have to explain what the hell you were talking about to people. Mm-hmm. And I only got about 60% of it, right? Mm-hmm. And you were like, right now, Maverick is the master of, I've got this clever line that I just made up and pulled out of my ass. And everyone's like, wow, that's really wise. You didn't have that wisdom. You might have had the point of, hey, Etsy is not the future. This is the future. But you couldn't say it.
Right.
So I had to piece through the fact that you believed it so much to say, okay, we'll spend this amount. We'll do this. We'll give it. You had to beg me to give you resources to start growing it, right?
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah, I remember it was like written permission to spend $20 a day. That makes sense. I think that, I talked about.
That's not true.
No, it is true.
Written permission.
Never, ever.
What I mean is I had to literally text you. Like, I have screenshots of asking to spend money, and it's like a comically small amount. That was just the way it was. I mean, I think I talked about, you asked me if I changed earlier, and obviously we both changed. I think everyone who's worked for Portland Leather Goods or at this stage in a company for any period of time has probably changed. But in the beginning, I didn't even have local information. Like, I was trying to solve local problems, right? Like, how do I do this thing? And it's about the thing in front of you. It's about Shopify. It's about that particular landing page. But if you do that enough times and you get to realize, this is not that hard. It's essentially just accelerated common sense. that local knowledge eventually turns into like global frameworks, right? And so you go from how do I solve this specific problem, and everything is a specific problem for a specific thing, and then eventually you develop a mechanism just for solving problems generally, and that's the global framework. And I think you and I, me for sure, I'll speak for myself, that's where the majority of the growth has come in, and where it's been so in parity with my outside life is I now have frameworks from which to attack problems or just the attempt at making progress in anything in my life from my business experience, from my growth marketing experience. So
that sounds very like, a lot of the business people. I'm sure I have frameworks. I don't see them as frameworks.
Oh, well,
I see them as
I'll poke
all
back
of
at
this
you.
buzzy knowledge and stories that I'm able to see patterns and do things with, but you actually try to create frameworks.
Well, I'll challenge you on this.
In himself, like everything that is going on. You don't have to do that every time.
It's kind of fun, though.
I want to know, MacCoy, because you came in and you were thrown in a landfill, and you had to do all these things, and you had to see the future and say,
landfill?
Landfill?
Land what? Where did you throw him, the poor guy?
Do you know what a landfill is?
Yes, the garbage and stuff.
Okay, we put him in the landfill.
Okay.
Yes, we threw him in the landfill. I
Word,
like that.
All right. And you have to raise your hand and say, this is the future, this is where we're going. And now you are a key element to this company.
Mm-hmm.
So yes. And you have done so many amazing things, and you have seen the growth and seen what do we need to do and what do we need to change in order to achieve this. What set of skills or what is in your little toolbox of a person that makes you the person that has done this?
I'm unclear. Am I a little
section.
person, or is it a little toolbox?
We're gonna have a session where Mariana builds the person up like you're this and you're so this, and we'll go build the other person way the hell up, and then ask them a question section, right? She's like, you've done all this. So before you answer with the toolbox or your toolkit or the Legos, whatever you got, digging your way out of that landfill, I want to.
Are you seeing Luke Skywalker just the and the no and the
oh wow, that's a good one. Yeah.
That came to my mind.
No, I think that I want to say this. Anybody, I think they need to understand that it really helps if you're with the highest possible people of the company, right? Mm-hmm. You would not have grown if we had put you in shipping or putting it like you had to be next to me because I was making all the decisions.
Yep.
So you had to convince me to make decisions. So being next to me and talking to me every day sure helps, right?
Oh, with that, yeah. It would have been
for podcast.
Yeah, it's like what you can do wrong in hanging out with somebody like that. Okay, so she just built you up. What was it? What did you see?
It's when you're exactly correct. Like the proximity to the decision makers is so important because like the more layers you have to go through it and translate an idea or try to pass on an idea, like the more diluted it becomes, and you're at the mercy of the competency of whoever it is you're trying to translate that idea through, right? Or, you pass it to them and hopefully they're smart enough and they have the right words to articulate it up. And it's much easier if you share a desk with the CEO. So cheat code, right? But to Mariana's point, that transfer of ideas is really hard with words. And Curtis mentioned I didn't have a lot of the words. Again, my reason being is I was focused on a very like specific problem. I didn't have like the global frameworks. We didn't have, the evidence and the track record of like leading people to where we wanted to go and then building trust. But it's more, I just alluded to it, it's more of that like leading mentality. People try to convince other people for usually one of two reasons. One is they need some sort of buy-in from them to actually get the thing done. And in which case you're kind of stuck. You need to convince them to act a certain way so that you get moved to the next step. And then other people try to communicate and convince people because they need to reduce the pressure off of them that they feel like they're going to get crushed if the bet they make isn't their own. And so they try to get the herd to follow them so they don't fall off the cliff by themselves, right? And they can forgive themselves a little easier at night. But I think some of our biggest breakthroughs are the ones, especially like major company chapters, are the ones where we really abandoned trying to get everybody on board and just led the way. And that's much scarier. But you can move really much faster. And so you had to have confidence that like, if I make this mistake, I'm not going to get crushed. And I built up I built up trust in the system and in Curtis by making enough mistakes and not getting crushed, that he truly valued the speed in iteration and progress more than he valued, the $600, the figurative $600. So we made lots of mistakes, but we did them fast and we moved forward.
We got to the point where we could take our area and move forward very, very fast, but other areas didn't do that, right? I still had the weakness where I thought I had to convince everybody of what it was before we could move forward. And I remember so specifically, we had started with like 20 or 25 people sewing, and COVID had happened. We had moved to Mexico, and then we had 8 people sewing, and then 5. And there's still 3 Ukrainian sewers in there, and Anna's worried about them having a job. And I'm like, I get it. They were very nice people. And I remember standing on my deck of my house saying, how do I convince everybody? And then thinking, wait a second. I actually am the owner and CEO. I can just make the decision. And it's so...
That's carried on.
Yes, I learned it, and I learned it well, because I went in the next day and I said, by the end of the month, we have to let everybody go.
Right.
And everyone gave me a sigh of relief. They're like, because they didn't have to buy in.
Mm-hmm.
They could say, okay, we'll do that, and still go back and say, I don't think it's the right idea, and say whatever they wanted. Didn't matter. The decision got, and then a month from then, you could say, oh my gosh, aren't we glad that just happened? We did that earlier. Me having the ability to do that with other people was harder. Yeah. Are you capable of doing that now? Are you?
Yeah, without a doubt. You're like, which doesn't mean I'm not capable because I don't make mistakes. We make tons of mistakes. You do the best, you move in the best direction you know how with the evidence that you're given. You're not entitled, by the way, to evidence or signal from the universe at all. So you have to make sure that, I think that's another big persistent problem, is people sit around and wait for the right guess to be, or the right path to be presented to themselves as if they're entitled to the universe, like showing them the way. You're not. Like, you have to go out and do your research. You have to find signal. But then when you go and you make that decision, you carry on down that path, you should be able to forgive yourself, but you're going to make mistakes. The short answer is like, yes, we're much better at making those decisions now. We don't need as much buy-in, but that does not mean we don't make mistakes. So we're not free of that. But we've found more success in the speed in iteration and decision-making process than we ever got from aggregate buy-in from everybody feeling good about the decision.
So if you play in a little pool, you think the ways how you're traveling outside of are big. So I grew up in Montana in Great Falls, and I remember thinking that was the whole world. Mm-hmm. And then I remember going to Billings, one time, and we all wore these hoodies, and it was just like the color of your school, either, green or gold, right? And we put our names right here on the back, but then the hood covered up the name. I remember going to Billings, and they were smart enough to put it halfway down the back, so when the hood was there, you could still read the name. And I went back, and I'm like, guys, we live in a big world. You wouldn't believe the genius that's going on in Billings, Montana. And then there's the other kids whose parents are flying them to China and Paris and New York, who are coming back saying, Curtis, you really think the hoodie thing is the secret to the world? And we see things in a very small thing. Once you see the bigger world, it's like, dude, you guys are in the cave. You really are not seeing this thing.
Is it at any point overwhelming?
Oh, yeah.
The big world.
No.
I'll give you. So my way of saying that what you just said is, I wish I could remember. I've tried to find it so many times who said this, but they describe this as like, you walk into a room and it's a big party and everyone is having a decent time, and you're sort of like patrolling the edges of the room, and you find a secret door handle, and you open that door handle and you walk into another room, and there's all these people having a much bigger, much better party, and you're like, oh my God, I had no idea you were here. I just sort of stumbled in here. And they go, yeah, all those other people, they're idiots. They don't even know this room exists. And you're like, that's fantastic. But then sometime later, you find another secret door handle, and the room opens up again, and they're having an even bigger and better party. And they say, yeah, all those other guys, they thought there was only one extra secret room. Turns out there's 2. And that cycle never ends. You're just sort of stumbling into like this, like, I don't know if it's higher consciousness or whatever it is, but like perspective hits you. And so where does it ever get anxious? Yeah, because sometimes you give into the idea that there's another secret room, but you can't find the door handle. And so you're like searching and searching. You're like, I know I have this feeling. I know this isn't it, but I don't know where the door handle is. I don't know how to get to the next side. So that's my way of like articulating that idea.
You know, and it goes back to Plato, and you know Plato's cave, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think so.
And so
Let's
the
go.
whole thing is like what?
I know.
I think
The
so.
whole the whole story is like the one
Mushy
guy
stuff you play with, you know, like clay.
You're
I'm just
tied into this cave, and you only see things on the wall of images and on the wall. And some guy gets loose and goes outside of the cave and says, "Hey, everybody, there's a big world out there." And they're like, "Yeah, you lunatic, you're crazy." Like
Mhm.
I see this in talking to people when they say, "How are you so optimistic? How do you believe it's going to work? Why are you so confident? How do you do these things?" I'm just like, it's apparent. I've seen it. Like it's so apparent, but you cannot explain that to them because they're still sitting in the doubt, right? But hey, here's the thing: from his story,
Okay.
there's a couple more rooms we could go to. There's better parties that we gotta go to, is
Yeah.
what he's really saying here.
At what point do you start systematically looking for the new doorknob?
Always.
Yeah.
No, not always. Not the first time, not the second time.
Ooh, Maverick.
It depends on it depends. Unfortunately is the correct answer. Like in your belief, like some people go to that second room and they're overjoyed they found something slightly better. I mean, is there a curve where you just get so comfortable because the party is so good that you stop looking? I think for a lot of people that's true. And then there are neurotic people who just like have a chip on their shoulder, like Curtis and I, who just haven't stopped yet looking. But I'm saying that thinking like I've made it 4 or 5 rooms in here, and we feel like we have, but I don't have a conception of how many more there are. I think there's more, but at some point, like you sort of see people get comfortable, and I don't know what that thing is that makes people habitually look for the next door no matter what until they fall over dead. Some people do it, you know, like Warren Buffett was active till the day he died. Now, whether that was his passion or just his neurotic
Isn't
energy,
Warren
he had
Buffett
to
still
do the
alive?
thing. Oh, sorry, Charlie Munger. Excuse me. Sorry, Warren.
We're
Sorry.
really sorry about that.
Oh
buddy.
no!
They're
Breaking
looking good.
news.
They're looking good. I
No,
like it,
yeah.
buddy.
Breaking news. No. Charlie Munger, obviously, like, you know, so involved in his thing until the day he died. I don't know what that is. It's probably different for everyone, but I'm still looking for a few more hidden door handles.
How many rooms have we went through from when you started?
That's a great question. It would be easy to say at least one per year.
I would think so.
Yeah.
I think so too. Now, one couple of those rooms we went into, we tried to have the party, and we like, screw that. We completely not move up party. We went back to the original party, right? And said, well, okay, that was a mistake, right?
I think this will be much more clear I've talked a lot about like the first 10 years of the company to the next 100. I think it'll be a lot clearer when we get, you know, way further down the line, we're looking back, because those like big bullet point transformations, I think, will become more apparent. And so I think you go from like Etsy is a big bullet point, and then Shopify, like the closing of Etsy and the opening of Shopify now feels like a big bullet point. Maybe it won't in the future.
It was.
Maybe that'll all get summarized into one. The transitioning of manufacturing from Portland to Mexico is a big bullet point. And then committing to leading into the committing of large growth cycles to where we are now. Obviously it goes without saying you're not going to grow infinitely forever, but I think that we're in this one long extended chapter. And so maybe it's 4 major bullet points in the rearview mirror. Maybe that'll all get condensed to one at some point. But right now it feels like
changed my mindset. Did you catch something about a minute ago that he said?
No.
Just blew me. Do you know what you said that changed my mindset?
I'm not sure.
You said, hey, I look at it as the first 10 and the next 100.
Yeah.
I'm just like, that is the way to look at a company. What are you building for 100 years? Because everyone's like, oh, businesses, they come and they go and they last and you got a growth cycle and everything. It's like, no, there's some around here. They just evolve all the time. And if you got capital, if you got good people, you should be able to evolve in a big TAM area into something that is sustainable for 100 years, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's the whole point. Go ahead.
Yeah. I just changed my mind. I'm like, I kind of got this. We've been 10. Let's figure out the next 5 to 10.
Well, unless
my mind never went past that.
I mean, we're talking about a business, right? Which when it's your first generation, like you're the founder, this is your thing. But if you want it to live for 100 years, it goes without saying that like at some point the business goes from being like, whether it's your baby or whatever you characterize it at, it's going to make some sort of transformation into something much more like an asset, right? Like it's either going to be inherited, it's going to be sold, something's going to happen to it where it changes hands and it becomes a second generation or beyond. And so the first 10 years is symbolic of like that. That's generation one. But unless you plan on burning it to the ground when you walk out the door, it's got to survive, outlive you or me or anyone, which is a very helpful framework, which is like what makes sense for this business if there's no names and there's no faces, or our new favorite framework, which is what would somebody much smarter with much less emotional attachment do? Like if you get a much different answer from using that framework, that might be a sign.
I gotta tell you, I've been killing LinkedIn. Like every post just kills. And I did that one. I stole yours and I said,
"Oh, did you?"
Somebody?
Darn it!
Nobody liked it.
Oh, that's well. Then you saved me from bombing, so I appreciate your sacrifice.
No. Please go. You'll bomb in a different way. They totally thought it was about firing people, and it's not. It works for every type of a framework. Yeah. It just clarifies things. What I basically said is it's going to scare you because you realize you already know the answer, right? Yeah. The answer is already inside of you.
See,
of course it is, right? Which it truly is, and that's a really, really smart one. Okay, so. This is the most famous part of our history.
Okay.
COVID.
Oh, yeah.
I remember where I was because I went down and watched University of Oregon beat Stanford and beat Arizona. Dominate. Beat them by 40. I mean, Sabrina was killing it. We came back, and we remember in the cab on the way to the airport in Vegas, the guy saying, yeah, what about this COVID thing? And I'm like, ain't no thing, man. We just won, right?
Yes.
We get back and all of a sudden just shell shock within a week.
Yeah.
What happened? How do you remember it? How do you see it?
Oof. I mean, I could probably drone on and on about it, considering 2020 was yesterday, or that's what it feels like. But you want the personal angle or the business angle? A mix of both. Okay, I'll mix it up.
Man. That's just like threw it up there for you.
Well, okay, so on a personal note, because it contextualizes how I thought about the business. So on a personal note, like I had this successful photography career. I had this photography studio, which was still going well going into 2020. And then I had my son on January 1, 2020, 1/1/2020. Awesome birthday. And that was going into the hospital. I had talked to you and I said, I'm committing, like, I'm going to hang up the camera at least. I still have my studio, but I'm going to make this my full-time thing. Which was me agreeing to essentially like a pay cut in take home pay compared to what I was making as a photographer. So like I wasn't like a bum photographer. I was doing very well. But I was like, I see the potential in this more. So full commit, say no to all my weddings, which in hindsight, you know how that turned out. And then coming back from paternity leave, I walk in and it's like, hey, this thing called COVID's happening. We have to shut the business down. And I remember being like, no, that's not an option for me. No, that's not an option for me. And I remember saying like, what am I going to do with my time? Why don't I stay on full time trying to figure this thing out with you? Because who else is going to, if everyone's gone, what are we going to do? And so I remember it as, I don't know if the history books will look at it the same way. I remember basically pleading that instead of turning off the website, Shopify specifically, that we move to a pre-order system. Because I was like, we can still collect money. I can still run ads. I can still get feedback from the universe about what's happening if we still keep selling. Let's just make it sellable. So we went to Kickstarter style, right? Well, you can give us money. I have no idea when we'll give you product. But that decision allowed us to keep what I called the heartbeat monitor on, which was this, slow beep, 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 beep of potential and of like consumer demand, not collapsing the way we all hoped it, or not hoped, but thought it would.
No, I don't know what you just thought.
So Curtis was connected to one of those just recently.
Now I know.
And then they take it off so that they can...
It was a finger thing. It's going to beep, and they took the finger thing off. And Mariana was like, grab my hand. She's like, ah. She for a second thought
you died.
And then I'm like, oh, you didn't die.
Yeah. No, it's really funny looking at the sales charts because there are a few days where I think I'll go back and look. I'm pretty sure we'd shut it off for a few days.
That would be so
we shut it down.
I'm pretty sure. I'll have to go back and look because we just had no idea. Like people, again, we were selling what we were making. It was basically made to order at that point, forward 1 or 2 days of production. and we had nothing to sell. So like we did what we thought we had to, which was shut it off.
So this is the closest, the number one we're out of business thing that if we had not taken and pivoted very fast, we were gone, right?
I think so, because I don't know how we would have ever got back from both of the stores turning off and no one showing up to the workshop.
How long did it take to set Mexico up?
That, I mean, Curtis probably has a better recollection of that.
So
but
this
exactly
would have
when we
happened
decided to go was a
in
big important
March
decision.
of 20.
7th, we closed everything here.
Yeah, March, because it was like the 9th that I came back from Vegas, so a week later. We set up the studio here in June 1st.
Wow.
So, no, we had already kind of started talking about doing it, but we really moved very, very quickly. The biggest problem that you may or may not remember is we couldn't get a business license to run in Mexico because the government was shut down. We couldn't get licenses because of government. We couldn't set up a bank account because banks were closed down. We couldn't send, I mean, there was just like no way to do this. And we did it anyhow. But if I think back, I kind of thought, well, yeah, of course we made it work. That the big move was moving to Mexico. I think what you're saying is the big move is we decided we're going to stay in business no matter what.
Yeah, we committed to, by selling things, we knew we had to like make them eventually. But I think had we not done that, there would have been no reason to show up and try to figure it out. I think we would have just joined the rest of the world and like waiting for it to pass.
Yeah, and that's what got a lot of people, right? They just like, well, next week things will change, and they waited on it, and we just never did that. So
No, and that was 3 months of survival mode. That's a lot.
well, it was something, but you know that was the big thing. So what's your famous quote? I've changed it in history, so go ahead and tell me. I've said probably on 20 podcasts I've talked about your quote.
Well, I'll preface this because I just went and dug up this while we were talking in the back. So we did shut off ads completely, which brought our daily revenue down to just several $1,000s, which was 4 or 5 or 6x what we were doing in the days previous. But because of that decision to go pre-order, within the next, let's see here, 30 days, we went from doing, I'm just going to spoil it, I know you don't care, it's like $2,000-ish a day when we turned off all ads and we were basically shutting down. In the next 30 days, we turned on pre-order and we had $100,000 day. So that you can see us literally quit, basically shut off ads and get ready to pack it up. And then you can see the pre-order start. And then we have $100,000 day by the end of April.
Crazy.
So you're talking days. Crazy.
I didn't know this.
Yeah. I'm looking
I
at the sales
forgot
charts now.
this.
It's
like that
fascinating
is
to look at.
crazy.
That is your gift.
Oh my gosh. That's Maverick's gift?
No, your gift. You forget about the bad things.
Yeah, I did.
That is true. I love the 360 you just did. That's Maverick's gifts. Oh yeah, I do forget about things. Okay, so
absolutely do. It's
the
all
famous
about the bullshit.
the famous quote was us we were looking at the amount of outstanding orders. And I remember looking at it and we knew we couldn't get people back in here. But we started to get queasy about the amount of outstanding orders we had. And we were like, was this a mistake? Because I think we had, $500,000 in outstanding orders and no plans, no idea when we were ever going to fulfill them. And so we were downstairs in the basement and I remember thinking like, this is one of those great inflection points in time where we see the potential going up to the right. Like they're going to be business books or books generally written about the people who in these moments get scared and shrink and you never hear from again. And the people who get bold and who sees the opportunity and, make the most of the current situation. Instead of getting sensational and crying in a corner, look at the reality, the on the ground reality and say like, we're kind of okay. We're kind of alive. Let's act like it. And we got up and you flew down to Mexico and started production. So, I mean, books will be written about those inflection moments, but COVID specifically.
I remember it very, very clearly. Okay. Cause there was about 15 of us spread out and all with masks on, right?
Yeah.
So we brought everyone around and Maverick said, everyone get close. I have something to tell you. He threw off his mask and people were offended. He stood up on the table and he said, now is not the time to have fear lead us. Books will be written about people who got afraid and people who got bold. Curtis, I paid my own money to buy you a ticket to go to Mexico. Now go make us proud.
Yeah, just edit out all the crap I said. That is exactly how it happened. Exactly.
And everybody said
Applauded.
yes, Maverick, Maverick. Oh,
I
it was
crowd
amazing.
surfed out of the building. Yes, yeah. Exactly correct. Yeah.
Okay, so wow, we go to Mexico. Now,
hmm
dude, I mean, I didn't know what we were going to do. Wait. There's a big catch here. And a lot of little companies deal with this one. So this is a big one, right? We were a American-made company, American hides, made in America. Etsy, we hand make it right here in our little workshop. If I could do it at my dinner table, I would, and I'd bring it to you. And all of a sudden, we're like, what if we make it in Mexico?
Yeah.
And everybody in the company said, it's over, you're done, it will never work. Everybody said that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. This is common. What's that?
Well, Maverick said, well, you got other companies do this, we could do without it. And I was 50-50. I'm more on the line than people think that I am. Like I come across, hell, by the time it's a year later and I can retell the story, I knew everything and let everybody out of Egypt. But no, it was like hearing voices that weren't all doomsday, right?
Yeah.
Everyone was like, but what if, and people and blah, 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 blah. And that's the thing. What got you here will not get you there. What made you successful, throw that shit out the door and do something else. So we went down to Mexico and we went to, what do you think we did in sales in 2020? Do you have any idea? I'm sure you could pull it up.
I mean, I could probably pull it up. I'm pretty sure that was our $15 million year.
Yes, but how much of that was Etsy?
Oh no, I think that's Shopify. I don't even remember what our year over year.
We had an all-in 15 million year. We did not have we were supposed to do, I think we did 8, and then I think we went like 15, 16.
Okay.
But I think some of that was Etsy.
Yeah, I don't remember enough about the blended stats between Etsy because I Men in Black flashed it out of my brain every day to just focus on Shopify.
Men in Black flashed it. I like that.
It's true. It's
What
true.
do I?
Yeah, going down. Well, can I touch on the going to Mexico thing? Because I think that this is important for a lot of people, right? Because there was this big trend in D2C, which is the world we kind of belong into, of people naming like the name of their brand is the star product. And we are not dissimilar in that we're Portland leather. And so you're right. We had a lot of conversations like, okay, what does that mean? What does our name mean? And we decided, that we were still, what we stood for would still be intact if we manufactured in Mexico. And we were open to the idea that we could let loose on our ego, and we weren't actually the most qualified people to decide what our brand was, and that our brand was mostly our customers' reactions to our products, our service, our value exchange, and that worked out. And so just yesterday was touring somebody around the workshop in Portland, and they said, when you went to Mexico, was it because labor was cheaper, or was it this, or was it that? And I said, no, let me show you. And I walked over to the classic tote. And it is about as simple as it gets. And I said, you know why this was designed this way? This is Portland leather goods through and through. This was designed because Curtis could sew it on a sewing machine. And then I picked up a festival bag and I said, we had one person in the entire company who could make a festival bag. And the error rate was like 60%. So more than 1 in 2, we were throwing in the garbage. And this is a comically simple bag from a manufacturing standpoint. Moving to Mexico was not about quality it was not about price. We could not make 99% of the products we make today in Portland.
No.
The skill, sewing, the machinery, the manufacturing culture, it doesn't exist in the United States to that scale. We had sewing you know this better than I do. We had ads out for sewers from the day I walked in to the day we decided not to manufacture in Portland anymore. And so we became more by letting our customers and letting the world tell us their reaction to our brand and taking that more as true than this like ultra hipster Portland idea of like who we thought we were. We were a little more malleable.
Yeah. And the good thing is our brains change so quickly, like we move on. But I forgot all this stuff. I forgot how many sewing interviews I went through.
Yeah.
Right. And I remember designing a new, very simple bag, but it had a little curve to it. Remember the one that sat there and created? And I remember Jess on there, and I'm like, I need some for Christmas. How many can you make? And she's like, I got 3 today.
Yeah.
I'm like, 3? oh my gosh, I see you working. And she's like, well, 11 went bad. And she had like a stack under the table of one. She had messed up that area. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that
Yeah.
what?
There was
And
no
it was
growth.
always
We
living
couldn't
in
sell them.
fear of like, we could not produce.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of people that start up little companies, they make something like art festivals the same way. They make something and people like it and they say, you made this? That's awesome. Like, yes, I did. But they're limited by what they can make.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of learning how to grow and be better, they're like, how do I learn how to make something slightly better and different?
Mm-hmm.
And I spent a lot of time in the first 2 years trying to come up with new designs that I could make. I didn't have a sewing machine my first year, right?
Right.
My products were all based on what could I sew and put rivets in. That was the basis.
Yeah,
That sewing machine was a breakthrough. Literally called my mother up and said, what do you think we should do?
Just
Okay,
add one
so-
more like little flavor to the pre-order conversation. Because I'm just pulling the stats in the background, so if you see me trailing, the day we decided to go to pre-order and we ran our first big pre-order sale. So again, beginning of April, we decided we were out of business. We're shutting off ads. We're letting revenue dwindle to zero. We decided by the end of April, like, we're not going to do this. We're not going to lay down. We're going to go to pre-order. The day we opened pre-order, we did about $100,000 a day. For context, the Black Friday the year before, so 2019's Black Friday, we did not do a 200,000. We did about 60% on that first day of pre-order than we did on our previous Black Friday. So it's about as strong a signal as the universe could tell us, like, don't roll over. Like, you almost had a Black Friday day just by deciding you were not going to go out of business today. And that is
the breakthrough you just told me
forward.
is that we said we really got to go into Mexico because we have products that we're selling that we can't make. We've got to get down there and get it made, right?
Yeah. What else were we going to do? It was either that or eventually refund $500,000 or $1 million in orders. And we're like, yeah, that's not going to happen.
Sounds like more like we were pushed in it rather than me like boldly leading us down to Mexico.
It was a little of both. Like it was no, I mean, it was bold because you could have gone anywhere, but the idea was like, it wasn't obvious that Mexico was the place. It was, we have to find a solution for this no matter what.
Yeah.
And we try to get people back in Portland.
Right? Because you already got the leather from there. You already knew people.
We talked to sewing places across in Vancouver. We toured a lot of places in Portland and Washington, seeing if someone could make it for us. Yeah. It was not as given as that. There's a big mental barrier on that border of saying, I'm going to go from the U.S., like I'm going to make it here, and I'm going to go 3 miles into Mexico. It's just like, what? Yeah. It freaked me out. Still at times does. Yeah. But it's not as hard as you think. If you're willing to go over a few humps, much better. Much better. We did some whole videos. Okay, so this is...
Episode 2.
Yeah, no, this was great. We're going to edit up episode 1. As everything we do, we took some action here. And then we're going to get better.
Yes.
We're going to learn from this, and we're going to come back, and we're going to do episode 2, which is like when the empire was really created.
Ooh.
Yeah, this is when it's all created before all the glory comes in. Mm-hmm. We're going to be talking about patina.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to be talking about actually learning. I think that we've learned in the last, I said this to Mav and he said it back to me, is we're just getting good at this. Like, we're just starting to understand concepts out there and nobody else gets these concepts, but it sure is nice to know and to figure out what we're doing. Okay. How fast, last question, how fast could we have done it if you had walked in 2018 and said, Curtis, I have been to the future. I've seen it all, man. We're not buying crypto. We're not doing that. We're not doing I'm not going to tell you events that happen in the world. I'm going to give you business wisdom and you're going to listen. And then you hypnotize me and I still run the company, but every idea you tell me to do, I actually do. Where are we at today? Ooh, I like that one.
I mean, it's crazy. It is absolutely crazy. One, because you won't listen, even if
that's why he hypnotizes me.
You still won't listen.
Nav,
hypnotized.
Well, where would we be?
Great question. There are pieces that we could have done quicker, and there are chapters we absolutely could not have skipped. There are like names and places and details that and situations we could have lived without. But what we couldn't have lived without is the knowledge. And so assuming I have all of that knowledge and it was just left to pure action, I don't think it's hard to imagine maybe we'd be a little further ahead, but I'm not going to say we'd be double or triple or whatever it is ahead. Looking back on the chain of events, it really feels like a series of lucky and fortunate events cascading all together. And so I don't know how you change. I don't know how you fast forward all that. That there is a magic in the journey and in the sequence and the things. So as much as I'd like to say, like, I'm a genius, we've learned a lot, I think that we could do it all over again in a year. I don't think that that's true. I think that you have to go through that. I think that there's, again, we created global frameworks from local problems, and those global frameworks are valuable and persistent. But doing it differently would just present itself with new problems that we'd have to solve. And so we can't avoid 100% of the potholes by taking a different way.
Wisdom there. It's crazy.
Wow. I don't know what they're going to do in episode 2. Because
I would have said
it's either
triple just.
Well, it's either like a letdown. This was so great, and then you have that letdown, like the follow-up, like Happy World War II. Or you can be like some of the very few movies where the second is better than the first. What are the 3 movies that the second one is actually better than the first?
Godfather.
The Godfather 2 is better than The Godfather. That is correct. Star Wars. Empire Strikes Back is better than Star Wars.
Oh, okay, I was curious where you're going. I'm like, was episode 2 of Star Wars better? I don't know if I know the third. Maybe Trolls 2.
Oh, that's a really good one. Good.
I don't think you've seen Trolls, but that's a kid's movie.
Rocky 3 was better than Rocky.
Is that the second, though, or is that the third?
No, that's
now you get an extra swing.
That Rocky 3 is better now. Aliens is better than Alien.
Aliens and Alien are crap altogether.
Sequels are hard, man.
Maverick and I will be back for the next episode. See you then.
Bye.